Investigative stories from Ukraine. Russian drone downed by Ukraine is full of Western components. Kyiv Independent. Welcome to Investigative Stories from Ukraine, the Kyiv Independent's newsletter that walks you through the most prominent investigations of the past week. If you are fond of in-depth journalism that exposes war crimes, corruption, and abuse of power across state organizations in Ukraine and beyond, subscribe to our investigative newsletter. A Russian Terra reconnaissance drone recently downed by Ukrainian forces was full of Western parts. According to Trap Aggressor, a Ukrainian investigative. Below are your comments. Regulations and standards are just obstacles that are gone around. Bottom line is what matters. The American-based company is not going to lose profits because of regulations. Everyone is fooling themselves if they think otherwise. In my 30 years working, I've had managers sneak defective produce. If you have not figured it out, the arms dealers sell to both sides. China, India and Turkey are doing business with Russia. No surprise things like this happen. Welcome to capitalism and capitalists. It's called business as usual, the continue of trade with enemy countries. No surprise there. Russians have been buying Western electronics anyway they can get them for years. Even hidden in washers and dryers. Next news. It's about world we want to live in. U.S. State Department on aid to Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. While there is room for the U.S. to continue supporting Ukraine, most of the security assistance has already been provided, so Congress needs to take action. Source: a statement by Matthew Miller, U.S. State Department spokesperson, at a briefing on the 2nd of October. Holos Americi. Voice of America. Miller on Twitter. X. Details. Miller did not specify how long the U.S. would be able to provide assistance to Ukraine without a corresponding decision of Congress. Below are your comments. Miller definitely has a compelling statement. And what he says should be a concern with the U.S. So his sales pitch about Supo. Every time Putin has been allowed to get away with something, the next step has been worse. If he's allowed to keep Ukrainian territory, Ukraine will always be under risk of more invasion. If he gets away with it, China will see they can get away with invading Taiwan. It's not a favor we're doing you. State Department, as part of Joey's groupies, is, as usual 100% in the wrong. The overwhelmingly vast majority of legal U.S. citizens will barely notice if the Ukraine ceases to exist under the Russian onslaught, no matter how much the media carries on about it. The Ukraine will not. Next news. Biden tries to reassure allies of continued U.S. support for Ukraine after Congress drops aid request. Associated Press. President Joe Biden convened a call Tuesday with U.S. allies and partners to coordinate future support for Ukraine after Congress passed and he signed legislation that kept the U.S. government funded but dropped his request for billions of dollars to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Biden sought on Sunday, just hours after he signed a bill to fund U.S. government operations through mid-November, to reassure allies of continued U.S. financial support for Ukraine's war effort. We see below are your comments. Kudos to Congress, thinking about us first. I see Biden losing his bribe source. No more money for Ukraine. You have to keep in mind that these stories are slanted towards Biden's favor. Yahoo is pro-Biden. Yahoo doesn't even do any stories on the border crisis. As if that is not an issue or even happening. Not legitimate news. Does the clueless one realize that the entire world is now laughing at this country, calling the FAI-led leadership the Dumb and Dumber Act? Next news. With winter approaching, is Ukraine's energy system ready for renewed Russian attacks? Kyiv Independent. The specter of Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy system looms once again as winter rapidly approaches. Last year in early October, just as Ukraine's heating season began, Russia launched a month-long series of missile and drone attacks against Ukraine's energy infrastructure, leading to blackouts amid freezing temperatures and electricity rationing. The attacks damaged half of the country's energy system, Ukrainian officials said. Below are your comments. Says Moscow, October 3, 2023, RIA Novosti. The South group of troops repelled 3 attacks by Ukr. The 3rd of October, RIA Novosti. In total, the armed forces of the Russian Federation repelled 6 enemy attacks in the Donetsk, Krasnoyarsk and South Donetsk directions. The AFU suffered the greatest losses in the Donetsk direction, up to 180 people per day. In addition, the Russian army hit the Kommunikati. Republicans banning aid to Ukraine is a thank you to Putin for his election help interference. Next news. Media. UK minister says Ukraine has practically defeated Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Kyiv Independent. Ukraine's recent attacks on Russia's Black Sea Fleet have led to the functional defeat of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea, UK. Armed Forces Minister James Heappey said at the Warsaw Security Conference on October 3, according to Ukrainska Pravda. Below are your comments. Temporary relocation of ships isn't a military defeat. His aides-de-camp should have explained the ins and outs of it before he opened his mouth to comment. No wonder Britain's word means next to nothing nowadays. Paging Winston Churchill. I've heard this story far too many times to believe it. That is an outright lie. I'll be surprised if Zelensky is not offed by winning. Keep sending those billions lol. Next news. European Commission to unfreeze billions of euros for Hungary in bid to support Ukraine, featuring Ukraine. NSKA Pravda. The European Commission is preparing to allocate billions of euros to Hungary from EU funds, which are currently frozen due to problems with the rule of law in the country, to ensure Budapest's support in increasing the EU budget and providing significant financial assistance to Ukraine. Below are your comments. This article is a blatant lie. Just like we got used to from this Ukrainska Pravda already. As several EU bureaucrats admitted, the reason for blocking these funds is not that there is a problem with the rule of law in Hungary. Look up what Jourova, Scholz, von der Leyen and company said. They have no idea. Hungary is like Russia, the same mentality. Better get rid now of this tiny country troublemaker. No money for Hungary. This is the basic rule. So blackmailing didn't work, now they want to bribe us. Next news. Bloomberg. U.S. military, ready to deliver, cluster-armed ATACMS Kyiv independent. The U.S. military is ready to send Ukraine some of its long-range Army tactical missile systems. ATACMS. Armed with cluster munitions once U.S. President Joe Biden approves the transfer, Bloomberg reported on October 3, citing the U.S. military's chief weapons buyer. Below are your comments. Should have had them a year ago. Could have destroyed every Russian supply depot clear to the border without moving the front lines. Inch. Starve the Russians out with no food and no ammo. If they had them last winter, they could have frozen the Russians out. The U.S. spent trillions during th. Send them for God's sake and stop the marketing. Russians would feel the heat. With ATACMS, now Ukraine can conduct a few special military operations of their own. Don't wander too far away from your trench comrade. Crimea will love ATACMS. Aim the ATACMS with cluster munitions where the Russian blocking battalions are at. Then the rest the Russians will throw down their arms and run. Get done. Death from above coming soon to the orcs. Next news. Ukraine's Special Operations Forces destroy 7 units of Russian equipment and their field ammunition storage point. Ukrainska Pravda. Fighters from the Special Operations Forces of Ukraine's armed forces have destroyed 5 infantry IGHTING vehicles, 2 trucks and a Russian field ammunition storage point on the Zaporizhia front. Source: Press Service of Ukraine's Special Operations Forces. Details. The press service noted that information about the movement of Russian equipment was received during the combat missions on the Zaporizhia front. Below are your comments. The video appears to feature a lot of smoking orcs. A lovely sight. It's good to see the Ukrainians prevailing. Russia's stupid invasion has been a military disaster of epic proportions. I think Putin felt it would go like Crimea with little resistance, but the Ukraine military quickly bleeped that idea. Putin also did not plan on the support Ukraine received from T. Beautiful cook-off show. Almost as good as fireworks on the 4th, only more beneficial and meaningful. Slava Ukraini. Carry on and conquer the orcs. Next news. Ukrainian Air Force bleeps down cruise missile and 29 Shahed kamikaze drones out of 31 launched TOA. RDS Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. The Russian occupying forces attacked Ukraine with 31 Shahed kamikaze UAVs and an Iskander-K cruise missile on the night of the 2nd to the 3rd of October. Ukrainian Air Defense Forces managed to bleep down 30 aerial targets. Below are your comments. The orc success rate with the drones in this attack was 6.7%. All that work for no tangible results. The 3rd of October, RIA Novosti. The armed forces of Russia destroyed fuel depots and aviation weapons of the Ukrainian Air Forces in the Dnipropetrovsk region. This is reported by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. In addition, the Russian army hit the communications hub of the 66th Brigade of Putin, wasting his money on ineffective terror campaigns. Says Moscow, October 3, 2023, RIA Novosti. Next news. Pentagon warns Congress of lack of money to replace weapons provided to Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. The Pentagon has warned the U.S. Congress that it is running out of funds to replace weapons sent to Ukraine and has already been forced to slow down the replenishment of some troops. Source: AP news outlet, referring to a letter sent to Congress leaders. Details. Pentagon Controller Michael McCord told the leaders of the House and Senate that $1 Below are your comments. Interesting, they are worrying about the destruction and breakthrough of border equipment for Ukraine. Nay, but refuse to give a care about the U.S. border. Joe Biden and his corrupt agencies. The amount of money being thrown to that country is simply absurd. The fact that Ukraine is going through ammo faster than what the rest of the world is able to manufacture it is even more absurd. Sad what $700 billion won't buy these days. Seems the priorities of the Pentagon are out of whack. Worrying about Ukraine while ignoring America. Next news. U.S. State Department sees aggressive anti-corruption measures in Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. The U.S. Department of State has seen that Ukraine has taken aggressive steps to overcome corruption over the past few weeks and urged it to continue. Source: a statement by Matthew Miller, U.S. State Department spokesperson, at a briefing on the 2nd of October. Details. Miller said that the issue of corruption was discussed with President Zelensky during the visit of Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, to Kyiv. Below are your comments. In USA they call it corruption, in other country Call it handling fee, booster fee, finder's fee, security fee, tong, etc. And I believe in the tooth fairy. The Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the entire world. Trying to pretend that that has all changed in the last few months is a total joke and insulting to intelligent Americans. We know why Joe Biden wants to give away the farm to the Ukraine. Hard to do when little man Zelensky is corrupt to the core. Next news. U.S. prepares new aid package for Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. The White House has announced that the U.S. is preparing a new aid package for Ukraine which will be sent soon. Source: Karine Jean-Pierre, White House spokeswoman, at a briefing on the 2nd of October, as reported by European Pravda. VDA quote: "We will have another package of aid for Ukraine soon to signal our continued support for the brave people of Ukraine," she stated. Below are your comments. Where is this funding coming from? Wasn't the planned funding removed from the last bill? This goes to show voting does not work. Period. Start with the impossible. Proceed calmly towards the improbable. No worry, there are at least 5 exists. Daniel Berrigan. Contact your congressional representative and tell them, no more aid to Ukraine, end the war. Next news. State Bureau of Investigation hands over helicopter that Motor Sich Company wanted to hide from Armée D forces. Ukrainska Pravda. The State Bureau of Investigation reported that it handed over the Mi-2 helicopter to the Ukrainian military, which the former leadership of Motor Sich JSC tried to conceal from the armed forces of UK. Rain. Below are your comments. There's less and less Ukrainian supporters of Putin every day in the Ukraine. It sounds to me that some upper management type did not want to lose his personal transport aircraft. I mean, why should he have to drive on terrible roads when he can just fly over them? I would charge them. Says Moscow, October 3, 2023, RIA Novosti. The South group of troops repelled 3 attacks by Ukr. Next news. Ukrainian defenders repel Russian attacks on 5 fronts, 35 combat clashes occur. General Staff Report. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine's defense forces repelled Russian attacks on the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Shakhtarsk and Zaporizhzhia fronts and struck at the areas where Russian military personnel and their equipment were concentrated. Below are your comments. Moscow, October 3, RIA Novosti. Artillery struck the temporary deployment point of the 128th Brigade in. Putin is trying to win this war by government change in the West. His army can't do it. Poor disposable Ukrainians. Zelensky and his daddy Biden are making huge bucks while Ukrainian males are sacrificed en masse. Shouldn't they be doing the attacking instead of repelling attacks? Next news. Armenia's parliament votes to join the International Criminal Court, straining ties with ally Russia. Associated Press. Armenia's parliament voted Tuesday to join the International Criminal Court, a move that further strains the country's ties with its old ally Russia after the court issued an arrest warrant for President Vladimir Putin over events in Ukraine. Moscow last month called Yerevan's effort to join the ICC an unfriendly step, and the Russian Foreign Ministry summoned Armenia's ambassador. Below are your comments. Russia has no allies. Who would want to be friends with a rotten gas station? Welcome aboard. Armenia's alliance with Russia is not old. In fact, they were allied with Russia right up until just a week ago. More accurately put, they are longtime allies. It's a good move and for a good reason. Azerbaijan needs to be held accountable. Now Armenia can arrest Putin. Next news. Zelensky meets with Estonian Defense Minister. Ukrainska Pravda. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky met on Monday with Hanno Pevkur, Estonian Defense Minister, who is visiting Ukraine. Source: Office of the President, as European Pravda reported details. Zelensky thanked Pevkur for Estonia's leadership in helping Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale war and spoke about the current situation at the contact line and the current needs of Ukraine. Below are your comments. It is back to photo ops again? Now when will King Charles be visiting? What? No cash? Yes, 2 pickup trucks and a dozen old shotguns provide from this Baltic powerhouse lol. Ukraine just got admitted. Welcome to NATO. Ukrainska Pravda. Soon he will look like a black sheep for not willing to end. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you like it, please thumbs up.